Okay, I hope you're keeping up with the pace of all of this valuable information. The next round is for me. So I'm Jean-Charles Verdié. I'm the Director of Devices Field Engineering at Canonical. I've been with Canonical for a little bit more than 2 years. And I go by JC because Jean-Charles is obviously very complex for everyone, not French. And today I will be entertaining you with the Cyber Resiliency Act, the CRA, and what does it mean for Ubuntu and what does it mean for device manufacturers. So our agenda will be, it will be not so long actually. We will just remind everyone what is the CRA and what are the main requirements in case you have not heard about this before, just so you know what we're talking about. We will dig a little bit into the details of what is the context of the CRA and what are the key challenges for devices manufacturers, and for devices generally speaking. We'll do a quick recap about what it means, what can be done, and how we can help people doing this. And I will be sharing a few resources, and maybe you will have some questions. So without further ado, let's get started with the introduction about the CRA and the main requirement. Again, this is very summarized, but remember that at the end of my slides, there are a few resources that you will be able to use to get into as many details and get all of the answers to all of the questions you never dare to ask about the CRA. So what is the CRA? The CRA is a new regulation for PDEs. PDEs are products with digital elements. This is a EU-centric regulation. It's been driven by the European Commission and the European Parliament. Why did the European Union came with this regulation? It was to create a safeguard for customers and businesses using PDE. The bottom line is that, as you all know, most of the devices are fire and forget devices. Ship it and forget about this. Go to hell, we don't care about this anymore. So they basically said, okay, this time is past. How do they want people to achieve this? They want to make sure that people who want to distribute elements demonstrate that they have set in motion a secure design, configuration, and operation throughout the entire life cycle of the device. So it doesn't mean that you have to properly design and develop the device, but it means that you have to demonstrate your capability to maintain this device throughout its entire lifetime, which can be a little bit overwhelming. What is the scope of the CRA? So they split the devices in 4 different categories: default, important class 1, important class 2, and critical. I'm not going to dig into details. It's usually quite obvious. If you have a computer who is running in a surgery room, you can probably guess where it goes, while when you have a remote control for your light in your bedroom, you can also probably guess where it goes. They also define what is out of scope. A lot of things do not have to comply with the CRA. Obviously, everything which is not a device, like a website, a SaaS service, it doesn't have to comply about this. In terms of software, free and open source software do not have to comply to the CRA, but you will see that there is an asterisk because we will be talking a lot about the but, because they do not have to comply, but. This is like 10 next slides. And sectors who are already run by regulations, such as automotive, medical, aeronautical stuff, all of this, they do not have to comply to the CRA. And of course, everything which is related to military equipment and national security, they do not ask them to publicize any kind of design about how they made it. Again, for obvious reason. In terms of timeline, we are right in the middle of things because the process has been started in 2022. It's been adopted by the Parliament in 24, late September, if I remember correctly. And the enforcement will be in 2027, which means that people will need to start reporting by 2026, which in our own ecosystem means like tomorrow. And again, the main objective and the bottom line about all this is that PDE need to be secure before and after they are sold until the end of their life. Just to clarify about the timeline, so the adoption in late 2024 was the adoption of what is called the overall guidance. So this is what you should be doing, this is what you should not be doing, this is what you will need to demonstrate, what has not yet been determined and that we are still looking for is what is called common criteria for protection profile, which actually means here are the elements that we will be checking on whatever you are delivering. So which it's basically the test plan. For who the CRA is applicable? So if you're involved in the process of building a PDE in the EU market, at some point you will have to be involved in the CRA. Which means that manufacturers, obviously, everyone who is developing and manufacturing and willing to sell a device in the EU will have to comply. When I say they will have to comply, it means that they will have to demonstrate their capability to be compliant with the CRA for every single element which is composing his device, or they will have to demonstrate that they are using providers of some elements who are by themselves certified. Which means that by trickle-down mechanism, all of the providers who are willing to sell something in Europe will have to comply, because obviously all of the manufacturers, we go to them and say, okay, I need this piece of software from you, but you need to prove to me that you are CRA compliant. Not really relevant, or maybe it is a little bit relevant, but importers, everybody who is importing or distributing PDEs in the European market will need to demonstrate that they have done their due diligence, and they will have to demonstrate that they are selling CRA compliant devices, otherwise they will not get the CE mark. And something that we are going to discuss right away on the next slide is stewards. So this is a very specific case. They are called guardians of the open source software. This is a very specific definition which has been defined, but I'll talk about this later today. But basically, because of the nature of open source software, the European Commission determined that it was not fair to put the same burden on people developing open source for the fun and people who are providing software for a business. So, as I said, open source and the CRA, what happened is that when the very first draft came through, the open source community as a whole has raised a lot of concern and has voiced a lot of anger about, come on, are you kidding? I'm doing this on my spare time for the fun. I'm not going to be liable for any kind of problem my software is giving to anyone. So it's been clearly marked that if you are developing a free open source software, you are not liable to anything. There is an exemption in the case, this is the case, that you are not in the course of a commercial activity. Commercial activity can be anything, including support, consulting, implementation services around your open source software. There's still a lot of conversation about this, and some people are not really happy about exactly what is the definition of what is a commercial activity and what is not. But this is the point. And in the case that you are not running any kind of commercial activity around your software, then you will be exempted for any kind of liability and financial penalties related to the CRA. And so obviously you understand the problem. So you have a manufacturer who was willing to use the software, and the guy who is developing the software say, all right, I'm not taking any liability on this. So we have a catch-22. So the EU came with the introduction of the steward role. So the steward role, as I said previously, he will be the guardian of the open source software that are used in devices. He will have less stringent requirements. So he will do not have to comply to as many rules as a proper provider would have to. But he will still have to comply to a minimum security baseline for open source software. So he will still have to make sure that he's engaging in actively resolving any kind of issues that are reported, and so on and so forth. And he will have to collaborate with manufacturers to make sure that any kind of issue which is resolved is properly deployed, and vice versa. If a device manufacturer is providing him with a security patch, he will need to make sure that he's integrating this. Why does it matter? I don't want to harass you with numbers, but this is a 2022 study, so it's probably even worse today. But 90% of commercial application include some part of open source code, whether it's one library or 10,000 libraries. In this open source code, 84% of the code bases contain at least one vulnerability, at least one. And the average number of days to fix a vulnerability is 96. And if you look at all of the vulnerability which are listed on regular open source repositories, 33% of them are more than 5 years old. So it says a lot about the problems that we have with software over time. It's very important that we put some rules so that software which is deployed and which is used in critical paths is properly maintained. But the most overwhelming number to me is that every single open source project has an average of 70 dependency to other open source projects, which means that if you take all of these numbers and you multiply them by 70, it's like an incredible matrix and an incredible complexity that you have to deal with. Let's go on the context and key challenges for devices now. Sorry, there. Why does all of this matter to device manufacturers? Because the device market has changed a lot in the last years. In the last 15 years, it's dramatically changed. We came from devices with just 1,000 lines of code to devices who are embedding a full-fledged real-time operating system with a lot of libraries, C++ code, a lot of crazy things. And it's incredibly complex to maintain on a regular PC, and even worse when the device is not a device that you have on your hand, which is a headless device, which you can only access from time to time, and so on. So it's become an incredible challenge. Plus, most of these devices are now connected, which means that in addition to whatever security issues they have inside, they also have the security issues that they are communicating with the outside, which means that every kind of problem that they have can be impacting the rest of your network. And as a matter of fact, recently in the news, we are hearing more and more about, oh, we did a small patch and it broke like 10,000 PC running critical operation. We are really sorry about that. Or all of your personal photo has been exposed to the web or whatever. So it's a good thing, not for people who are suffering from this, but it's a good thing because it raises awareness that really we should not be messing around with these devices. These are important part of our life, and the industry needs to do a better job in making sure that these devices are properly developed and maintained. So it's basically a call for strengthening the security of this device and making sure that we have a robust and secure design lifecycle. So the CRA requirements for IoT devices are like the CRA is like that thick, so I'm just summarizing this. There are 4 categories. In terms of product documentation, manufacturer will need to be able to provide all of the product's manual. When I say product manual, it doesn't mean how to operate the device, but it also means how to upgrade the device. Do I need to use a USB key? Do I need to connect to a server? How do I need to download the firmware? Where do I need to put it? Is it automated? Do I need to plug it? Whatever. It needs to be documented from day one. It needs to include all of the cybersecurity schemes the product is complying to. If it's a FIPS compliant product, it needs to be written down. It needs to be referred to the official website and so on. And also the SBOM of the device will need to be made available. Not printed in the box, but you will need to give a link and to provide the SBOM. And again, think about what I was saying about one open source project having on average 69 dependency. You can imagine the size of your SBOM. It can be quite fun to generate. The second part is secure design and releases. This one is probably the most difficult, but the most critical. Manufacturers will need to demonstrate that they have run a proper risk assessment on their device, that they have modeled the threat properly. A threat modeling is basically identifying with my device errors or problems that I can run through. This is the kind of attack I can be exposed to, and this is how I'm mitigating this. The SSDLC, so the Secure Software Development Lifecycle, so manufacturers will need to be able to demonstrate that they have put in place internally an SSDLC, and that their design is secure by default. So secure by default means many things. It means that you have to demonstrate that you have not embedded any known exploited vulnerability, which means that you need to be able to identify all of them and to make sure that your device is shipped with all of them fixed, all of them based on your threat modeling, not all of them like the entire world. It means that you have to demonstrate that you limited the surface of attack of your device, so you have not opened all of the ports, you have not any kind of user with no password which anybody can log with or whatever. And it actually includes that you have to demonstrate that you minimize the amount of data your device is exchanging with the rest of the world. So if you have to send one information to your server and you are sending all of the photo of your user at the same time, no, not gonna happen. You have to minimize whatever you are exchanging for obvious reason. If there is a problem because somebody else has not been doing a good job and your information is taken away, they want to minimize it. The third part is vulnerability management. This one is an easy one. Well, based on the fact that you have also risk assessment already set in motion, the vulnerability management you will need to demonstrate that you are able to identify and timely patch all of the issues that are reported to you. But the most critical one is that you will have 24 hours to report to the ENISA, which is the European Security Agency, 24 hours to report the issues that you have been facing. And also any kind of actively exploited vulnerability. So whether you identify it before it's too late or after it's too late, you will have to report it timely. When I say you will have to, I should say you will have to, or you will have to pay a fee. And last, but probably least, attestation and certification. You will have to put a bunch of paper with everything that you have been certified, every test you've passed, everything like this. In the next two slides, I will be zooming a little bit on secure design and release and vulnerability management because they are probably the two most critical and the most important in the scope of what we've been discussing today altogether. So secure design and release. Just checking time. So as a manufacturer, you will need to, as I said, provide information about the product design, development lifecycle, release process. You have to demonstrate that you minimize the attack surface and the data processing, that you are sure that your product has no known exploitable vulnerabilities. In order to do this, you will have to set a proper security testing in motion and to do some mitigation, because obviously you will not have to apply every single patch or every single project in the world. You will have to, even if you are using an open source package, it doesn't mean that you have to apply every patch. You have to know which patches apply to what you are facing or not. So you will have to demonstrate that all of the relevant steps in the process of doing this have been accomplished internally and that you have a solid process. In other words, you will have to demonstrate that you have a well-designed and implemented SSDLC internally, which can be a little bit of work. In terms of vulnerability management, again, it's really a matter of accountability. So manufacturer will need to maintain security during the product lifespan. So you sell the product and you have to maintain and to update it so that it remains secure over time. You have to fix all of the vulnerabilities as they are reported, and you have to distribute patches to users and devices. So this is just a step back. This is why it's important that from day one you have to show and to document how devices are updated, because it's already happened in the past. There's some device, or you can go to the website of the manufacturer, and if you dig deeper, you will find the firmware update, and you will be able to update your firmware. So this is not the way it should be working. People should know from day one what they need to do to update their device. You will have to report vulnerabilities to the third parties. So if you are facing a vulnerability which is related to an open source package, you will have to timely inform the steward of this package or the provider that is embedding this package that you have identified this issue. If he gives you a patch to fix it, you will have to apply it and to make sure that it's deployed to your device. And if you find the solution by yourself and you patch it, you will have to make sure that you're properly delivering this back to the open source community. And again, you have to promptly inform the ENSA about the exploited vulnerability. So I wanted to repeat this again because it's super important, because it means that every single package, every single component of your device, you will be accountable for, which means that, well, basically, you will have to make sure that everything you are embedded is working properly. And as you can guess from what we've discussed before and my numbers, this is not something that everybody can do on every single package. It's not a requirement from the CRA, but obviously, we find it very difficult to imagine doing that kind of thing on so many devices over time, only with USB stick and firmware to download from a website. So we believe that the fleet and device management system will be more and more important over time, and that it's not really serious to start shipping products which are connected. Well, for offline products, of course, it's different. But if your product is connected, it's probably not serious to not think about how can I update this remotely. So just because for obvious reason, you will have to make sure that it's properly monitored. So you will have to know what kind of devices are working, what kind of devices are broken. You will need to check their status, making sure that they are up to date. You will need to be able to control their update at scale. It's different to update a few devices and update 10 million devices. Obviously, you will have to have a proper software management that does this at scale, not like 10 million devices in parallel. You will have to make sure that the patches are delivered efficiently. So it's not like 6 months between you fix a patch and you deliver the new firmware. So, but I'm stopping there because there is more to come about fleet and device management. Yeah, it's called recap, but it's more like a takeaway. I think that if you want to change the perspective on CRA, there are 4 main blocks of commitments that you need to think about in terms of CRA. The first one is scalability. How are you going to iterate and develop new versions of your devices in a more and more complex world with more and more features, with more and more software embedded, when you will have to maintain this? Because what we have been discussing for the past 20 minutes, or I should say for the past 8 hours, is it's not about fixing your device of the year. It's fixing your device of the year and the device you shipped 5 years ago also. So it's really, it's not the same game. So how you will be able to grow and manage your fleet of devices, which is growing both in terms of quantity, but also in terms of complexity. The second one is monitoring. How will you be able to properly monitor and get information on your device status, making sure that they are running properly? If they are not running properly, getting an accurate report of what happened, because it might be a way for you to identify an issue. Maintaining it. In case you find an issue, how can you properly resolve it at the device level? Again, I'm not talking about fixing one device. I'm talking about fixing 10 different generations of devices with 10 different generations of that library and this package and so on. And the fourth one is update, because obviously when you fix the problem, your next challenge is to make sure that this fix is properly deployed to the device in a secured, in a secured and controlled manner. One of the things that you will have to do to make sure that you are properly covered on these 4 challenges is to ask you a few questions about your supply chain. As a device manufacturer, you will need to ask for every single provider you are using, whether they are open source, hardware, software, whatever. Are they able to give me their SSDLC? Are they even aware that there is an SSDLC and that they should have one? Are they able to provide me the appropriate level of documentation, of support, of security? Are they able to fix a problem if I get back to them with a problem? Are they CRA certified? Are they compliant? Can they give me their certification? Are they able to demonstrate that they have a properly process to timely identify vulnerability and incident? Do they have an SBOM also? Sorry, do they have an SBOM? All of these questions. So for every single provider, you should ask this question. And in the event that you are using open source component, and I hope you are using a lot of open source component, you have a set of additional questions that you should be asking. Is there a maintainer? Because unfortunately, some packages are not maintained anymore. If there is a maintainer, is this maintainer willing to take the manufacturer role? Which means, is he willing to take the liability which comes with the manufacturer role? Otherwise, is there a steward who is willing to take this role? If there is a maintainer, how is he managing the dependency and vulnerability in the supply chain? So how often does he update the dependency with other open source packages using, and so on? And is he able to provide me with a timely support and patches throughout the life cycle? Something happened. I don't know what happens, but yeah, finally. So basically, is the supply chain risk properly managed? And really, the takeaway is that if one of these answers is no, then what you need to do, you have 2 options. You have to take this accountability, so it means that you have to become the maintainer and the steward of this package, or you will have to replace it, because otherwise you will not get your certification. The good news is that Canonical is ready, because all of our main products for device market, Ubuntu Core, Ubuntu Pro for devices, and Landscape, all of them have been designed with compliance to that kind of mechanism in mind. We have an internal SSDLC, we have threat modeling for every single software, and, well, 10 years maintenance and up to 12 years maintenance, it's bread and butter, Canonical DNA. I'm sure that somebody mentioned this before today, like 10 times maybe. I think I'm almost done, so do you want me to go over Ubuntu Pro for devices again? No, I'm not going to do this, but again, yeah, Ubuntu Pro for devices, the real takeaway is that not only we are maintaining for 10 years your system, but pretty much every single package that you might want to use or that you will never want to use. You will find the package that we are not maintaining, but good luck with that. And in this case, we have an option for you. Go and talk with us. Ubuntu Core, obviously, it's been designed with all of the CRA requirements in mind. It looks like it's been designed with it, but it was there before, so we started this. It's like minimize surface attack, everything is isolated, and so on, blah, blah, blah. So it's really CRA compliant. And device management, I don't want to spoil the next presentation because Michael will be entertaining you with Landscape for the next 30 minutes, and I really don't want to take his time. As a conclusion, 5 things. So CRA is pushing for new requirements for device security. The era of fire and forget devices, it's over. We have to be serious about what we are doing with devices now. It's happening tomorrow. In the next 3 years, actually in the next 2 years, you will have to be able to demonstrate that you are compliant, which means that probably every single device that you will be shipping by this time, you are already thinking about it. You already have a design, you maybe already have a prototype. And if you don't yet know what you are going to ship in 2 years, then you're probably already late. It will be increasing the need for risk assessment, documentation, vulnerability management, but we are just talking about what everybody should be doing without any kind of regulation having to enforce this. It should be the way it's done. With the increase of usage of open source in device and the proper management of vulnerability and attack surface reduction, we will see a better quality of software, but this will need to be done. And the biggest takeaway is that obviously we have a few softwares that can help you in this journey where it's probably a challenge to do this by yourself. And in any case, using one of our solutions is probably a better and a cost-effective manner to use it, to do this. And I'm done. I'm not sure you will be able to scan all of them, but I'm sure they will be made available somewhere. So these are 4 QR codes that are bringing you to 4 resources. The first one is a blog post from our CISO where she explains the CRA in details. What does it mean for open source? What is steward? And what does it mean for manufacturers? The second one is about the CRA and what does it mean in terms of embedded devices when you are using Yocto versus when you are using Ubuntu Core. It's an interesting exercise to see what kind of work you have to do depending on what is your initial choice of OS. And then 2 webinars. The first one is about what is a CRA, generally speaking. Well, generally speaking, in the context of Canonical, of course. And the second one is what does it mean for device manufacturers, which is basically the same thing I've done there, but in a 1 hour long conversation. And I'm done. And I'm right on time.
Any questions for JC? Oh, yes, question.
I'm a little bit confused. I just want to make sure that my understanding is correct. So if I do provide my clients with a bot which has a hardware and Ubuntu Core in it, does it make me impacted by this CRA?
You're providing your customer with a robot? Yeah. Yep, you are. Unless your device falls into one of the categories which are exempted. So we will need to dig into the details of what is your use case. Something I forgot to say, which maybe is one of your concerns. Depending on what kind of software you are using, you have different type of certification. You can be self-certified, which doesn't mean that you can do anything, but because you can be audited even if you self-certify, but it's a lighter certification. It really depends on the criticality of what you are embedding. For instance, in our case, for Ubuntu as an operating system, we cannot self-certify. We have to go through an auditor. So I would say that in order to answer your question properly, we need to know what is exactly your robot doing, what is the market, and what kind of software you are embedding.
Okay. All right.
We can discuss this with a beer when Michael is done.
Anyone else? Oh, there's more.
A question about the SBOM. I noticed you said it needs to be published. If I build a container that contains some proprietary software that we're providing to a customer on an IoT device, would we still have to publish an SBOM publicly?
That's a tricky one. I mean, if your software is embedding a part which is proprietary, so you will not have to dig into the details, but it's really a matter of licenses.
Okay.
It really depends. But if your full software is proprietary, I think that you still need to have something. Well, in this case, SBOM is quite simple because it's your own code. You have everything in-house.
Yeah, except you have dependencies like open source.
Yeah, then you have to. In this case, you have to say, I wrote a code, it's proprietary, but it's relying on this package, on this version, and this version.
Publicly? Is it publicly published? Do you publish it?
It has to be made available to customers, yes.
Yeah. If somebody gets your hardware, they have a right to request
Yeah.
it.
You have to put a QR code somewhere so that he can see it.
It's not necessarily publicly published, then I have to be able to make it available to my customer.
You mean if you want to put like behind an ID, a login password thing? I think that this is a tricky case. We need to check, but I think you have to do this publicly.
It might be similar like with the Linux kernel, right? It's open source, but I need to have hardware from you in order to request the whatever modification you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think there's going to be any complexities around where responsibility starts and ends with the device as well? Sort of touched on it. I mean, if I have a device, for granted, called Lenovo, I put Ubuntu core on it, and then my software.
Oh, actually, the answer is bold and simple. You are selling the device. You are responsible. If you feel that you are not, you have to demonstrate that it's somebody else.
Yeah, fair enough.
So it's on Lenovo. It's not me.
If you're buying a car, the air conditioning compressors from
Yeah.
Verdié, for example, you don't care, you bother.
You don't go to Bosch to complain that the air conditioning is not working. Yeah.
Fair enough.